Most people still believe XRP is waiting for some future event to become useful, a regulation announcement, an ETF approval, a major partnership reveal. They think utility will suddenly arrive one day in a wave of headlines, but the truth is far more important and far more uncomfortable for those who rely exclusively on the visible market. The real XRP value transfer system is already live, operating quietly behind the scenes, moving money in ways that most holders will never see on a chart. Before we get into the details, remember this is not financial advice. And if you appreciate research grounded in reality instead of speculation, take a moment to like this video so it reaches more XRP holders who need clarity. And subscribe to Matrix Millionaire so you never miss the infrastructure level insights. As of right now, XRP is trading in the low $2 range. Now let's get to the part nobody talks about. The part your favorite influencers cannot show you because it doesn't exist on public dashboards. It doesn't appear on exchanges. It doesn't generate candles. It operates in the place where real finance lives, the back-end settlement architecture of global money. The world's financial system runs on value transfer networks so old and complex that most people have no idea what happens beneath the surface. When two banks transfer funds across borders, it is not a simple send button. It is a chain of correspondent banks, nostro accounts, Vostro accounts, custody layers, messaging systems, liquidity providers, intermediaries, clearinghouses, and settlement rails, many of which were built decades before the internet existed. This is where Ripple built its system, not on the surface, in the plumbing. And what most XRP holders don't know is that this plumbing is already active. Ripple's institutional value transfer system, built around XRP but not dependent on public exchanges, is quietly moving funds through corridors that never touch the retail-facing world. These corridors operate through enterprise APIs, liquidity hubs, and routing logic designed for efficiency, not publicity. They are used by payment companies, remittance firms, institutional liquidity providers, and banks that are preparing for the next era of settlement. But here's the part that shocks most people when they finally understand it. These flows do not appear on the XRP price chart. They do not show up as trading volume. They do not influence market sentiment. They do not signal themselves on the front end at all. This is because most institutional value transfers using XRP don't route through exchanges. They use private liquidity pathways, routed through Ripple's software stack and liquidity partners, where XRP is sourced quietly via OTC channels or institutional pools. The public sees none of it. It feels invisible, because it was designed to be. Now imagine what this means. It means XRP is already functioning as a bridge asset before the world even realizes it. It means banks are already testing the system that will replace correspondent banking. It means value is already moving faster behind the scenes than the old rails can keep up with. And the reason you don't see it is because institutions never reveal their transition steps until the entire system is ready to flip. To understand why this hidden system exists, you have to look at the broader macro structure. Because what's happening right now is not a crypto trend, it's a global liquidity overhaul. Gold is tightening. Bond markets are rotating violently. Tokenized assets are emerging. Settlement delays are creating measurable risk. Institutions are under pressure to modernize infrastructure. And every one of these forces creates the same requirement, a neutral, real-time value transfer mechanism. This requirement does not wait for ETFs or headlines. It begins behind closed doors, in the back end. And that is exactly where the XRP system is already running. Now consider the nature of institutional testing. Banks do not make public announcements when they test settlement pathways. Liquidity providers do not broadcast the corridors they are using. Remittance firms do not publicize infrastructure changes until they are fully deployed. So what do? They test quietly. They route value quietly. They build liquidity quietly. They accumulate positions quietly. They prepare their infrastructure quietly. And they do it using a system most retail investors assume does not exist. This is the hidden transfer layer, a layer built for speed, compliance, interoperability, and cross-border settlement, where XRP is already the key mechanism. You will not see this on a chart. You will not see it in trading volume. You will not see it in speculative cycles. But you will see its effects in global liquidity behavior, in the compression of old settlement rails, and in the accelerating pressure for real-time value movement. In the next section, we're going deeper into the mechanics of this hidden system, how value transfers are routed, how liquidity moves behind the scenes, and why the world's largest institutions are preparing for a settlement future that has quietly begun. To understand how the hidden XRP value transfer system is already operating, you first need to understand how institutions move money, not how retail imagines markets work, but how real global liquidity shifts behind the surface. Because when you grasp how settlements actually happen, the architecture Ripple built suddenly becomes visible, and you begin to see why so much of XRP's true activity never touches the front-end world. Let's start with the foundation. Value transfer is not trading. Retail traders think the system is driven by buy orders, sell orders, and visible volume. Institutions think in terms of throughput. Their goal is not speculation, it is movement, it is speed, it is finality, it is risk reduction, it is synchronized settlement. This is why the true XRP system operates where retail does not look. When a financial institution needs to move funds across borders, they do not open an exchange account and place a market order. They interact with correspondent banks, liquidity providers, custody networks, institutional messaging systems, settlement hubs, regulatory compliant corridors. These systems require predictability and stability, not chart volatility, and they cannot rely on public exchanges, where slippage, liquidity fragmentation, and volatility can disrupt settlement guarantees. So institutions route through private channels Ripple designed specifically to move XRP in the background without disturbing public markets. This is where the hidden value transfer mechanism lives. Now let's examine how Ripple engineered these pathways. 1. Liquidity hubs. Liquidity hubs act as neutral routing points that aggregate liquidity across multiple sources. They can source XRP from OTC desks, institutional pools, or private counterparties without ever touching a retail-facing exchange. These hubs handle routing logic, price discovery, liquidity optimization, regulatory checks, messaging synchronization. To a bank, this looks like infrastructure. To retail, it looks invisible. 2. On-demand liquidity corridors. These corridors are not speculative channels. They are settlement pathways. Institutions use them to convert value in one region into value in another region in seconds. The corridors were designed for the back end. Enterprise API integration, pre-funded or on-demand liquidity, regulatory alignment, automated FX conversion, optimized transfer sequencing. Corridors are the arteries of the new system, and they are already pumping volume through the network, even if that volume never reaches exchanges. 3rd, OTC sourcing. This is the heart of the hidden mechanism. When institutions need XRP, they do not buy it publicly. They source it through Ripple, through OTC liquidity providers, or through institutional partners that can supply XRP without moving the price. This creates a two-layer market. Layer 1, public. The price retail sees layer 2, institutional. The system that actually moves value. Institutional flows are routed through layer 2. Public markets represent speculation, private markets represent utility. The two layers operate independently for now, and that is why XRP appears calm on the surface while activity intensifies beneath it. Now let's add the macro forces driving adoption behind the scenes. Gold compression. Gold is the oldest settlement anchor in the world, but its rails are too slow for modern liquidity cycles. When gold markets tighten, custodians face latency risk. They must move collateral faster, rebalance positions faster, and manage settlement more frequently. This creates demand for real-time interoperability, and that demand drives institutions toward Ripple's corridors, not publicly, but through private testing. Bond market volatility. Bonds are the backbone of global liquidity. When yields swing aggressively, institutions must reposition billions in a matter of hours. Legacy settlement cannot keep up. The rails are too slow, too fragmented, and too dependent on intermediaries. So what happens? Institutions simulate or test real-time settlement pathways behind the scenes. These pilot transactions often use XRP as the bridging asset, but they are routed via private systems, invisible to retail. Tokenization pressure. Tokenized assets do not wait. They move instantly. They require a settlement layer that can match their speed. But the fiat world cannot settle instantly unless a neutral digital bridge asset is integrated into the workflow. This is why bank after bank is quietly building tokenization platforms. And it is why every one of those platforms needs a fast, interoperable settlement layer. This is the part most people miss. Tokenization forces settlement modernization, and Ripple provides that modernization quietly through APIs, not headlines. Now consider how these forces interact. Gold compression exposes settlement fragility. Bond volatility accelerates the need for speed. Tokenization makes the old rails incompatible with the new asset class. Cross-border volume continues expanding. Regulators move slowly, but infrastructure adapts quickly. These converging pressures create a single inevitable outcome. Institutions must use a value transfer system that is already live, because the legacy rails cannot handle the new liquidity environment. And that is exactly what is happening quietly in the background. This is why price remains quiet. This is why the public sees nothing. This is why the front-end world looks disconnected from reality. Because the system does not need to announce itself while it is being built. It needs to function, and it already is. In the final section, we will bring this all together, the psychology, the timing, the macro inevitability, and explain why the public chart is the last place the truth will appear, until the moment it can no longer be hidden. The greatest disconnect in the entire XRP story is the gap between what the public sees and what the system is already doing. Most retail investors judge progress by price. Institutions judge progress by readiness. And right now, the world is operating through a value transfer system that has matured quietly in the background, while retail waits for signals that will only appear at the very end of the transition. The hidden system is not hypothetical. It is not experimental. It is not someday. It is functioning right now. Corridors are active. Liquidity hubs are routing value. Tokenized assets are testing settlement pathways. OTC channels are sourcing XRP for institutions. Regulatory sandboxes are integrating new rails. Gold and bonds are compressing the legacy system. And global liquidity is forcing the old infrastructure to bend. The only reason the public cannot see this is because the front end is always the last thing to change. In every major financial transformation, the back end evolves first. The infrastructure becomes capable long before the market becomes aware. And then one day, without warning, the front end catches up in a single violent repricing event. That moment has not happened yet, but the forces that make it unavoidable are already in motion. When institutional OTC supply thins, when tokenization becomes standard, when settlement pressure peaks, when regulators finish aligning, the back-end system and the public market will finally meet. And when they converge, the chart will not rise modestly. It will reveal the truth that has been hidden in plain sight. XRP was not waiting to become useful. It was useful long before anyone realized. Most people will understand this only when it is too late. You understand it early, so before you go, support the research that keeps you ahead of the noise. Tap like, subscribe to Matrix Millionaire, and comment System Live if you now see the difference between the public chart and the world that actually moves money. The hidden system is not emerging. It is already online, and its impact has only just begun.